Well, Hector, it's Tuesday, so I guess that means it's time to start working the web to win.
Yeah, man.
And you know, when it comes to working the web to win, there's certainly been a lot of changes over the past few years, none more so than when it comes to search engine optimization. You know, since Google's recent update, Hummingbird, many website owners, even a number of professionals, have found themselves in kind of a quandary when it comes to generating page one results online. In fact, SEO used to have a very different meaning 5-10 years back than it does today. If you ask 100 different SEO experts, you usually get about 100 different answers. So all we have to tell our viewing audience is this: if you're looking for a leg up on what it takes to climb the ladder to search engine success, stay tuned while we show you what's up with SEO. But before we do that, I'm going to let Hector give you the call-in.
So for our friends in cyber world out there, the call-in number is 213-943-3808. That's 213-943-3808. Of course, you can also find us on workingthewebtowin.com, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and now YouTube. We've been talking about this subject off and on for about 3 or 4 years now, and I know we have over a dozen articles where we've actually written about this. And what's cool about our perspective versus a lot of the so-called experts out there is our opinion hasn't changed over the last 3 or 4 years.
Everybody else seems
and
to.
And there's what they keep saying that he says, change this, change that, change this. They're chasing changes. And it's like I said in the blog, you know, if you ask a carpenter, how do you build a house? He's going to say you get wood, hammer, and nails. If you ask a mason how to build a house, they're going to say mortar and bricks and so on. And the reality is, when you ask SEO experts, they have particular things that they really like to do, and that's really what they're going to talk about. If they're into social, they're going to talk about social. If they're into videos or whatever it is they're into, that's what they're going to talk about. And they're also always talking about what's changed and what you got to deal with the change, instead of talking about, hey, let's just make the gorilla happy.
That's right. Well, you know, and that's what I tell people when they start talking about SEO. I say, well, first thing you have to do is you have to define it for me.
Right.
Because it has completely changed. Because when you used to talk about SEO, even just a couple of years back, all you really needed to be conscious of was what was on your home page. In fact, still today, that's what people think SEO is all about. But we've found through Google that only comprises, what, about 25% of
we're just
the
estimating,
actual,
but yeah, we figure it's about 25%
of the
overall formula.
Yeah,
right.
the other 75% is all the off-site stuff, which is a lot more complicated. Your blogs, your social nets, your videos, even things like we're doing today with podcasts.
And even before, you know, 50% of it was on the page, and then 50% was off the page, which was all the backlinks.
Right.
What's really changed a lot over the years is there's lots of different kinds of backlinks now, whereas before, they were either business-to-business backlinks, unidirectional or bidirectional. You know, people either liked you that way or they did. But now you have videos, podcasts, social posts, ranking pages. There's all kinds of stuff out there that are backlinked to you, along with all the authoritative stuff and the directories and everything that was there before.
Yeah, well, and I think that actually there's 2 reasons why the search engines are doing this. One is their posted reason, which is that they're interested in the best content.
Right.
But I think the real reason is the fact that they realize that, with the exception of very large businesses with very large wallets, most small businesses have not the capability, especially in-house, to feed all this content in the system, because social posts, you got to do them daily. Blogging, if you want to be in the game, you got to do it pretty much weekly. In videos, you really need to post them monthly. Well, how many small businesses really have the time to do that stuff?
There are very few. And very few have the technical expertise in-house to do that.
Well, that's the thing, too, because, you know, before the spiders used to be pretty dumb. Well, now they can read. They really still can't see videos and pictures, but they're very good at reading. And I'm not just talking about, you know, as far as spelling and punctuation and grammar. I'm talking about
they can understand what the words mean.
They can understand a lot of it, and that's going to continue to increase as time goes on.
And on top of that, if the spiders really don't understand and it has a question on whether it's good or bad or whatever, it kicks it back to a team.
Right.
And these people then look at it and go over it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for chicanery and trickery and so on.
Well, and that's basically why SEO has kind of gotten a black eye over the years, because a lot of the guys that are quote-unquote SEO gurus have been used to gaming the system.
They've been tricking Google and Yahoo and all these other guys.
In fact, you go back 10 years, everybody was doing it. That was pretty much what you had to do to stay in the game.
It was rewarded. If you could trick Google, you were the expert. So now you could
In fact, this came along before Google was even along.
Right.
I mean, this is back when Alta Vista was there,
Yahoo,
Hotbot, and all the other little guys. Yahoo's still there, but a lot of the other ones are no longer
they're all
around.
gone.
Right, but back then everybody had to do that. That was because, like you said, it was rewarded. Well, now it's exactly the opposite. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Google keeps coming out with their algorithm updates, because what they've been doing for most of the time with the algorithm updates is unleashing these smart spiders to kind of shake out the rug and penalize people for doing the black hat techniques.
Right, the chicanery stuff that they shouldn't be. I mean, the reality is, if you go back to Google's old stuff and look at how they said that they want to rank people, it's always been essentially a popularity contest based on trying to give the user the best results for what they were trying to look for. And, so Google's always talked about relevance, quality, and timeliness on all their documents going back. I mean, they may have used slightly different words, but for the most part, that's what they've always said. And those things can be subdefined into a whole bunch of other things. And when you then look at all the technical additions, if you will, over the years, you can define what those things mean. And that's what this whole article is about. Now, I'm not saying that the mechanics of the page are no longer meaningful. I mean, Google has said that the meta tag for keywords, they don't even pay attention to that anymore. But they do say that they pay attention to the description, because they often use that in the search link.
Right, things like alt tags.
Right.
And also, obviously, you want to have certain keywords in the text. You just don't want to stuff the keywords in the text. That's another thing that they frown on. And what most people don't realize, because we've actually had this happen with clients, is that there are still guys out there trying to game the system. And while it works on the short term, what happens is once the spiders catch up to you and they knock you out of your position, you might never be able to get back in that position, because the search engines will actually hold a grudge. They can blacklist you now.
Right. And again, since content is what's becoming the most important piece, you have to be more focused with your content. I mean, in the past, people would have everything in their brother on their page. So when a spider came and looked at the page, it would have trouble figuring out what is the primary focus of the page, especially if it had 4 or 5 major subjects on it. And if the page didn't have a legitimate title, or a title that matched the keyword search term that people were trying to use, and the title and the domain name were all different. I mean, if they had a bunch of different names, it just confuses the spiders, because the focus is all over the place. It essentially becomes a jack of all trades page instead of a master of one key phrase. So having focus makes a big difference. And in a show that we have coming up pretty soon, we'll be talking about that, because that's a key factor in closing the deals, not just getting them to find you. So I like to talk about relevance a little bit. When we mean relevance, we're talking about, you always say, when somebody types in a word in the search, that's the question, and the answer should be on your page. That means that the relevant match should be on your page in some way, shape, or form. So relevance has to do with matching what they type in. If I'm looking for automobiles that are for 1963, your page better have for 1963 on it.
Yeah, well, in fact, the whole point is that there's no rule that says one website per customer, and unless you're selling one flavor of one ice cream, it makes a lot more sense to have multiple specific pages. In other words, pages, if you're selling apples, oranges, grapes, and bananas, you don't want somebody looking up bananas and hitting your page that says grapes. Because there's two sides of the equation. One, of course, is what is Google going to think that you're really talking about? And the other thing, of course, is what is the prospect going to think you're talking about? Because if they're looking for bananas and you're talking grapes, what's going to happen? Boink, you're going to lose that customer.
Well, the main advantage of doing the landing pages versus having them all in one, you can use multiple domain names. And those domain names are very important in the ranking factor. So if you got the perfect domain name and the perfect page title name and the perfect heading name,
it's going to make it easy for the bots.
Yeah, it makes it very easy for the bots to find you. So that's the main advantage of having multiple landing pages. It doesn't mean you can't have them all within one big Nexus site and have individual pages, but you lose that advantage of multiple
But see, the thing is, and you've seen this a lot, most people will come to us and they'll say, my company's ABC Co. All right. Well, unless somebody already knows your ABC Co.
they ain't going to find you.
Right. So having abcco.com does not help you with your search engine ranking one little bit. So the question I have is, okay, what does ABC Co. sell? And then by finding out that they sell apples, bananas, oranges, and grapes, now you can come up with 4 pages, each of which is targeted toward that specific keyword, so that when somebody comes to the page, not only will you'd be talking the talk that they want to hear because that's what they were looking for, but then you can give them all the information above the fold that they need to make a buying decision.
And of course, you can then link those pages to the main site or to the e-commerce site
Absolutely.
if that's what they're selling.
Absolutely.
And that gives you additional.
Yeah, I mean, you can put abccode.com on your your
Right.
cards and things like that because these are people that already know you.
Right.
But that's not going to help people that are looking for your business that don't know you.
Right.
And it won't help the search engine spiders put you on the right shelf either.
And again, the landing page is generally going to be a much more focused page. And if you lay it out properly with all the pertinent information above the fold, I mean, if you read some of the articles out there, they were talking about, easily find contact information.
Yep.
That's an important actual ranking factor now because Google wants to know that the websites are trustworthy because one of the scams on the internet is people will build these websites and there's no way of contacting them, but they're willing to sell you something and take your money.
That's right.
And then when you get the junk piece of equipment or whatever it is.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was just looking at an article here that I pulled up from Search Engine Watch, and it says how combining SEO and usability solves 4 common on-site problems. And the first problem is we need more content above the fold. Because how many times do you see a site that's obviously created by some graphic artist where most of the page is taken up with some huge picture that doesn't tell you anything about the site? You can't find a phone number. You can't find a map that shows you where these people are located. You got to click 4 or 5 times to get any relevant information, and people just won't give you that time anymore.
Right.
I mean, you've got 2 minutes or less to dangle the bait, set the hook, and reel in the fish, and that's just the way it is. So what you want to be able to do is give them everything they need to make a qualified decision above the fold. In other words, don't even want them to scroll. You want it right there in their face. You want to have at least 1 video, preferably 2. We'll talk about those in a little bit. You want to have a phone number, a billboard-sized phone number. If you want to have something big, put a phone number up there.
Real easy to find.
Right. You want to have some type of an offer or unique selling proposition.
Right.
And you want to have some type of a form. So if they're too lazy to pick up the phone, you've got another way that they can reach out and touch you.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to succeed.
Yeah. And again, when we're talking about relevance, I mean, all the terms, when I talk about RQT, which is relevance, quality, and timeliness, those 3 items, they're really not 3 different items. They're very interrelated with each other. So, for example, with quality, people often write web pages to try and hook the search engines. What they really need to do is try and create a really quality piece so that when a person lands on it, it hooks them.
Right.
It's the piece that hooks them, not some trickery that you're trying to make the search engines love you and all that kind of stuff.
Not to mention the fact that if you are pushing content out there, you can have a blog that has the keywords in it. You can have a video that has the keywords in it. So
podcasts that have the keywords in it.
And you can wrap a lot of that right onto your homepage.
And you have them all backlinking to that page. So that gives you this ranking factor. And then when people start searching for it, not only that, your terms are competing against everybody else's terms. So you might have 5 or 10 pages that are competing for that term, which means you have that many armies against everybody else. And they may have 1 or 2 or 3 only. So,
well, the big problem today is I still think a lot of people think it's still $19.99. All right, and even a lot of professionals, they still act like it's $19.99. They think that if they just service this one little tiny niche, that's somehow going to magically make people rise in the rankings. And we know today, because Google tells us today, that that's not what they want. In fact, on the Search Engine Watch, too, one of the things they says instead of posting text on page, we have a lot of what we want to say in a more entertaining manner. We call it video.
Right.
And we talk about that a lot because today people just aren't going to take the time to read. Plus, of course, a video cuts to the chase. Because if somebody finds you online, even if they do manage to find your link online and go over to your page, there's a 99% probability they don't know who you are. Right. They don't know what you're all about. They've never done business with you, and they're going to be skeptical from the get-go because, as we all know, www really means Wild Wild West.
Here's an example. A lot of people use WordPress for their blog. And they'll make this really nice blog, and if you read it, it's actually a very quality piece.
Right.
But they don't put any videos in it. They don't put any podcasts in it. They don't put any pictures even. And again, the more of the quality experience, the greater the likelihood that somebody's going to read the entire article, somebody's going to comment on the entire article, somebody's going to repost it and share it with their friends. And the whole idea of quality to Google is based on a popularity contest, based on engagement and use. And if people aren't reading it and posting it and passing it along, it's not popular.
Right. Plus, the thing is people think that the website is the only thing that can get on page 1, and that's not the case at all. We've seen videos on page one, we've seen blogs on page one, and we've seen social posts on page one.
And in reality, a lot of people's blog is their website. A lot of people, their Facebook page is their website, and so on.
So you've got to optimize that just as you would your website.
Right.
Because a lot of times, particularly, we've seen blogs that we've written go on page one in as little as 24 hours. Is one of the fastest ways to get on page one.
Blogs and videos can jump onto page one very quickly, and Google Plus posts jump onto page one very quick because they've got the word Google in it, obviously. And all those, when last year, the end of last year, when I was reading the studies, they were showing the top 10 factors that show up in the studies on why pages show up, and they all actually researched 500,000 pages. And Google Plus social posts were one of the highest factors. It was like 4 or 5. Facebook posts and so on were pretty very high. Again, it's all about the popularity of the individuals, and the more people using those sites, the greater the popularity, the greater it jumps up, and all those things are interrelated. I want to talk a little bit about timeliness, and because really timeliness is two different things. One of them is how old the article is, or page, or whatever it is, and that has a ranking factor in it, especially if it's a principled page that talks about stuff that's just not changing.
Right.
Okay. The other one is timing, which has to do with more like, is it viral?
Is it trending?
It's a trending item. Is it a fashion type of thing? Is it a seasonal type of thing?
Right.
Is it an event-related things like an election or Black Friday or something like that?
Sure.
Those two things together determine, in many cases, whether the page comes up or not. Because again, when it's Black Friday or it's right after Thanksgiving, everybody and their brother is looking for Black Friday stuff. Or if there's an election, it pushes up those search terms much higher very quickly.
Now, the thing is, though, the things that are seasonal, obviously, those aren't what you would call evergreen. Those will only come up during that season. So people have to realize that, too. Because the one thing that I like about all the content that you put online, it's unlike any other type of content. Because if you write a magazine article, or you do some type of a TV ad or an infomercial, or you do a radio spot, it can work like gangbusters while it's on the air. But as soon as your ad's over, it's over. It's offline. Where all the content that you build online, when you put, whether it's a blog or a video or social post, these things can take on a life of their own. It's like you're building this little army in the field, and you never know where or when they're going to pop up and get in front of a prospect.
Especially if the content is principle-based. And what I mean is things that don't change very much or change very slowly. If they're principle-based, they're evergreen content, really can play for a long time. We have several articles that are in a blog that are getting 200, 300, 400 views every month, and they were written 2 years ago. So those evergreen characteristics can be very important. And you can actually have an evergreen seasonal article. So if you wrote the definitive thing on Christmas or something, people will read it every year, that kind of stuff.
And speaking of Christmas, let's not forget to give our sponsors a little present. Because one of the nice things is that we are working with two very popular online sites. One of them is, of course, one of your favorites, Tub King.
Right. And Tub King, they produce some of the most beautiful bathtubs in the world. They have these clawfoot tubs that are used by a lot of the movie studios and by a lot of the really connoisseurs of beautiful bathrooms here in Jacksonville. And then also MedMasters, who has the first and most comprehensive medical community social network in the world. And what's really nice about them?
It's free.
Free to join.
That's right. So, one of the things that, again, makes the web go around is the fact that all the interconnectivity that happens out there. And in fact, you were just talking about the blogs, and one of the things that I like to point out is the fact that it's another Search Engine Watch article that I have talking about the fact that you really need to take advantage of the search engine friendly nature of blogs. And a lot of people don't understand how to do that. So I thought we'd give them a leg up.
One of the things I really like about blogging, especially on Blogger, is you don't have to remember to put your Google Analytics or anything, because it's just there.
Right.
I mean, and they give you pretty good analytics, but it's very user-friendly to use. I mean, you don't have to be a programmer or anything like that. You can actually use it to create websites type pages. You can control color, fonts, all those kinds of things.
If you put offers up there?
You can put offers. Now, if you want to get fancy and do all kinds of cool layout, you do have to understand HTML. But far from being there and doing that, you can do a lot of really cool stuff. I've been able to build websites for clients in as little as 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah. Fully functional.
Fully functional with PayPal ordering and everything.
Videos, whatever you want. I mean, that's the beauty of it. But most people aren't aware of the fact that you really have to scroll down to the bottom of the blog when you're posting it and put in things like keywords and make sure that you've got your backlinks and things like that all in a row.
Everything that you need to get that page to show up and be indexed is in there. And if people fill all that stuff out, boom, it'll show up on page one in many cases pretty quickly, especially if you have a unique slant of some kind.
Yeah, and another thing too helps when you cross-pollinate, because if you have a video that contains the same keywords, which is on YouTube, which guess what? Owned by Google, and you plug that into your blog, that's also going to talk to the bots. Because again, the more relevant that page is, the more of a chance you have of jumping onto page one.
And if you have a fairly large social following, like for us, we have about 50,000 Twitter followers overall, depending on which channel you're talking about, you can pump that out to a lot of people, and that'll produce a huge amount of play. And if only 1% of those 500 people repost it or retweet it or whatever, that's going to get somebody's attention in one of the search engines.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's why we often see these things jump onto page one in Yahoo and so on pretty quickly.
Yeah, for those of our audience out there that want to learn more about some of these techniques over and above what we're talking about on today's show, by going to our Working the Web to Win website, if you fill out the little form down there, we will actually send you a copy of our ebook.
Yeah, actually, we'll send you two of our ebooks. We'll send you Internet Marketing for the 21st Century and the new one, Working the Web to Win,
right, which is coming out.
Right. And that'll be on sale on Amazon, so you'll get the pre-release of the Amazon copy, which will be on sale for $4.95. So if you want to get the free book, definitely call in on that. You have to pay too.
Especially you. We're going to charge you double.
So we're talking about the numbers of all these different things. So quality also matters. Oh, we have a caller. Here we go. So I'm going to put them online here. Let's see who it is. Hello, caller. Are you there? Caller?
Do you have your...
I can hear you. You got to speak up.
I asked a lot about autoblogging software.
Photoblogging.
Can that really work for a client? I'm also hearing things about it being sort of like spam, and that it's just going out there and grabbing random material that is somewhat related to a website or a subject. Can you expound upon that?
So your question is, I'm going to put you on hold 1 second. Your question is about autoblogging, and does it really help people get page position and so on? The reality is, autoblogging for the most part is a scam. What those programs do is they actually go out and grab other people's material and puts it into a blog, and essentially that's stealing.
Yeah, well, not only that, but a lot of the techniques that are out there where people are trying to do a shortcut.
Right.
Okay, first of all, the shortcut is only going to work in the short term.
Right.
And particularly if you're grabbing other people's copyrighted material and not giving them some type of a byline or a link or something like that, again, that will get you burned down line. Remember, what looks good in the short run, if it gets you burned, you might never get back onto Google.
Right.
And we've actually seen this happen where clients get so burned and so blacklisted that they literally have to start from scratch.
Yeah, they have to make everything brand new.
In fact, sometimes they have to move because if your Google Maps tied into your sites, even switching over the website is not going to shake them loose. So you have to always take these, gizmos that they come up with to quote unquote save you a lot of time and trouble with a grain of salt, because you got to do the work. If you want to succeed, do the damn work, or pay somebody to do it.
And this is the thing: you can't really come up with quality content by somebody snatching pieces and paragraphs from other different places. That just is not going to fly. I mean, I've seen people try and do that, but it doesn't work. I know of nobody using autoblogging that has any kind of real following whatsoever.
Right.
So, I want to thank our caller for calling in. And I think sounded like Robert.
Could have been.
Could have been. We're going back to quantity, because we were talking about quantity matters. All of these different factors bundled together become this tidal wave of movement, if you will.
Well, I call it an army.
The soldiers in the field,
you're
right?
You're building your army one soldier at a time. Every time you do a blog post, every time you do a social post, every time you post a video or a podcast, that's another soldier in the field, particularly if you optimize each and every one of those. They're out there working.
And again, if somebody looks at their campaign, from day one, the first day they have one blog post, one video post, and say they're doing the top 4 social, and so then they have 4 of those, so that's like 7.
Right.
At the end of a month, they got about 35.
Right.
At the end of 6 months, they got 300 or 400. At the end of a year, they got 1,000, and so
Maybe.
on.
But the problem is with a lot of people, even if you write a quality blog post, it's like having a billboard in the desert. Because if you, it's like the old saw about if a tree falls in the forest,
Right.
nobody's there, does it really make a noise? Well, it's the same thing with a blog. If you write beautiful blogs, but you don't have any way of actually generating a following,
Right.
is it really going to help you? And we figured this out a couple of years ago because we've started to realize that Google was putting a very high premium on not only readership of the blogs, and on comments and reposting it to Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. In fact, if you go down to the bottom of any blog on Blogger, you'll see those boxes right at the bottom of the blog. But if you don't have anybody that's actually going in there and working those for you, does it really help?
Right. And that's why I think where social matters, and that you have to push it out to the social nets so the people will come in. I mean, it's all number. I mean, if you had 1,000 people come and read your blog, maybe 2 might put a comment.
Right.
So you really have to have the numbers, and what you got to do is find people that are willing to read your blog on a regular basis and invite them to come and read your blog.
Right.
And the same way with any other thing. I mean, if you go to their blog and read their blog,
Right.
then the likelihood of them coming and reading yours is much higher. So it's sort of a give and take type of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I scratch your back if you scratch mine. But the problem is with most people is they don't have the discipline to do that on a regular basis, and we recognize that. So we actually came up with a system we called Team Tech, and it goes under the brand name of clubwcube.com.
Right. And people work together to help each other. I mean, it's sort of like the B&I giver's gain type of thing.
Right.
You help each other, you scratch each other's back, and you actually get more play, and that's a very important factor.
And the nice thing is, like I said, if you're reading a few blogs a week, you read one a day, and you hit that little button at the bottom where you give a little comment, and then you repost it. You've used about 2 minutes a day. So if you've got 5 of your best friends working with you, like we do on Club W Cubed, and guess what? You're going to get a lot of play.
Right.
And particularly once you start pushing out your video to some of these people that have, say, thousands of social followers, I mean, all of a sudden you've got a real audience that's receptive to what you have to say. Then it's just a matter of giving them the content that they want. Because that's the other thing that you talk about a lot, which I think we should bring up, is blogging and social networking is not about advertising.
Right. It's about sharing useful information.
Right. It's not about you, it's about them.
Right. And again, one of the things I want to make a real quick point about social is it's a double-edged sword. If people are reading and using your blog and so on, that's a really big plus. But by the same token, if you have a tendency to rub people wrong
That's right.
or make them bent out of shape, guess what? They can easily post how terrible you are
Yeah,
or
in fact,
whatever.
I have an article here called Negative SEO. It says, have mercenaries been hired to torpedo your search rankings? And that happens a lot too today.
Yeah.
You've got guns for hire out there who will put out trash about you, so you've got to also look at that. We're just about our time here. We're about 27 minutes into
Well,
the
I got
program.
two more things I really want to mention real quick. I mean, one of the things that really wasn't around when all this started was mobile, and mobile matters now.
Right.
When you design your pages, whether landing pages or otherwise, they really need to be designed for mobile web.
Right.
And then the other thing is trickery matters. If you're out there trying to trick Google, you're going to come up and pay the consequences in some way, shape, or form. So, tell us a little about what this week's World Wide Weird. What's happening there?
Well, actually, what we're doing with World Wide Weird is going into space.
Ooh.
Okay. First of all, I don't know if you saw this because this was actually in the news feeds a couple of days ago, but there's a NASA study that concludes that civilization is going to end in the next 20 to 30 years. They said basically they based all of their research.
Would it be Planet of the Apes or what?
Well, we heard of something like that. Planet of the Cockroaches. Somebody will take over after we're gone. But what they're saying is it has to do with the fact that we're depleting, the biosphere so fast and overpopulating so fast. And in fact, they've got a lot of historical facts to back this up, because a lot of the other major societies that crashed and burned was because of the fact that you get to a certain point you can only feed so many mouths.
Human beings will be lemoning into space, or will be lemmings. What?
That's a possibility. And then the other one that I want to talk about was this. Here's what you were talking about, who's going to survive. They actually had a little, I don't know if you know what this is.
I don't know what that. It looks like a bug of our.
Well, it's actually it's a microscopic creature. It's called a water bear, and literally these things are practically indestructible. You can freeze them. You can put them into outer space.
I've read about.
You can dehydrate them down to nothing, and they come back to life. They've actually put them on the outside of a space shuttle, sent it up into space, brought it back down, and then once they rehydrate them, they were crawling around. So, Planet of the Apes, maybe Planet of the Water Bears.
Maybe we get some of them DNA and put it in us, and we'll be good. I think we got about 30 seconds left, so we want to, again, thank our sponsors. We want to thank Midmasters.
And Tub King.
Of course, they have the first and foremost online medical community, social networking that you can join for free. And Tub King also has beautiful walk-in tubs that if you got a pain, you can get rid of it pretty quickly. So.
And next week we're going to talk about all the news that's fit to stream. Until then, keep working the web to win.